Hello there, to my returning viewers. Welcome back. It's always nice having you along for the ride. For those of you who are new here, my name is David Liu. I am an incoming Western student studying medical sciences and in the Scholars Elective program. So today we'll be studying with the first system, and this video specifically will be about in-class note-taking. The next two videos will be about post-class review and how to study. I want to first introduce a principle that I believe is fundamental to your success as a student, and that is active recall. Active recall involves testing your brain. So it forces your brain to retrieve information that you learned way back when in class and to apply it to the question that you're seeing right now. There was a study that was conducted in 2011 that compared two groups of students. The first student used active recall methods to study one time. The second group reread their notes and the textbook 4 times, but they still didn't perform as well as the group that only reviewed once using active recall. So that begs the question, how can we implement active recall into our study? Cornell Notes. This is a template that you can use for your Cornell Notes. At the top and the bottom, you can leave some space, one for the title, one for the summary, and then for the main body of the page, you can divide the width into 70 and 30%. At the top of the first page of your notes for that lecture, you can include your title, but for all future pages, you do not have to. On the right side of the page, the 70%, this is where you're taking all your notes, the bulk of your content. The left side is used for questions. You write down questions based on the notes that you created that allow you to later test yourself on the knowledge. At the bottom, you can leave a few lines for summary. I don't personally do this, I just didn't find it that helpful after trying it for myself. On the left side of the page, you can also write down notes about concepts that you're unsure about or questions for you to later ask the teacher in class for further clarification. If the teacher also says something important, like for example, this topic will be on the test, so study it, you can also make that note there on the side. I want to encourage you to use short forms and abbreviations. It doesn't have to make sense to an outside viewer, but as long as you know your own system, that's okay. This allows you to spend as little time as possible writing down your notes and maximizing the amount of time spent synthesizing the information and making sure that you truly understand. This is an example of Cornell Notes that I took on carboxylic acids, esters, and fats. It's chemistry. If you also have chemistry right now, well, you're in luck. Free notes for you. So you can see that on the right here, I took my main notes, the main body or bulk of my notes, and I tried to incorporate many different ways of synthesizing the information, like diagrams, like drawings, like tables. And on the left, you can see that I've created questions so I can later test myself on this content. For example, I say here that carboxylic acids contain both acidic and non-acidic hydrogens. So on the left, the question I tested myself with was types of carboxylic acid hydrogens. And later, when reviewing my content, I can use this question to test myself to actively recall the information. On the left here, you can see that I marked this statement with a star. And that's because I mixed up esters and ethers. So I wanted to make sure I didn't do it again. One note has a feature that allows you to make a bullet point or a statement important. I wanted to add one last note that it's nice to add color here and there to make it a bit more interesting and fun to study. That's also why I screenshotted questions that I found challenging, like naming these organic molecules here. That way I can actively test myself on the knowledge that I learned. And it makes studying a bit more fun as well. So that's the basics of Cornell Notes. I also wanted to share a few general note-taking tips, no matter which note-taking system you use. The first is to never copy down what the teacher is saying word for word. Always try and rewrite it in your own words and maybe even synthesize it into new forms, like charts, Venn diagrams, tables, drawings. If you're just jotting down what's being said word for word, you might not truly understand the reasoning and the logic behind the information that you're learning, which leads to poor performance on those more challenging thinking and application style questions. This is kind of similar to working out. If you're just copying down what the teacher is saying, that doesn't require much brain power. Similarly, in the gym, if you lift very light weights for not a lot of reps, you're not working very hard, so you don't see very much gain in progress. Meanwhile, if you're actively synthesizing this information and using a lot of brain power, that's like lifting very heavy weights, and that is what leads to the big bucks, the big gains. That's what you want to be doing. Just one more thing I want to add. It's okay to make your notes look nice and pretty. It makes it more fun to study. But if it gets to the point where you're putting so much time into making your notes pretty that you're not actually studying and reviewing the notes, that's a problem. Find a good balance between the two, and that'll lead you to be most productive. Now that we've talked about how to take notes and tips on doing so, let's talk about what platform or system you want to use to take your notes. If you have an iPad, you can use OneNote, Evernote, GoodNotes, Notability. They're all great. If you don't have an iPad, like me, you can always go old-fashioned and use pen and paper. The value of using pen and paper is that by writing it down, it does require more brain effort. And the whole process of writing it out helps you to retain the information as well. And it's also better for classes that might involve math, like writing equations, or chemistry, where you have to draw. For courses that are mainly just typing, you can use Google Docs and Microsoft Word. There are actually specific Cornell Note templates online that I can link in the description down below for you. However, I would seriously recommend you to switch to OneNote, just because the organization system of the notes is so much better, and the less time you spend trying to find notes, the more time you'll have to spend studying. Especially if you have a stylus, OneNote has a draw option that is far more convenient than inserting an image in Google Docs. I know there are many other note-taking systems and softwares out there like Apple Notes, so just do whichever works for you, as long as you implement the principle of active recall and consider doing it via Cornell Notes. So you've taken great notes in class. Now what? In the next video, I'll be talking about what you should be doing after class that will best prepare you for tests and make you most productive when exams come around. In summary, today, this video was the first of a 3-part series where we talked about in-class note-taking. We then talked about active recall and how we can incorporate that philosophy through Cornell Notes. So that pretty much wraps up today's video. I hope you learned something and that you enjoyed it as well. If you could like or subscribe, I would really appreciate that. And I'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye for now.